Israel's military pounded the Gaza Strip as fighting raged with the Hamas faction and its terrorists. The number of deaths from the war against the Palestinian militants has now surged above 1,100. The Israeli army said it hit more than 500 targets. Fighting persisted in 7 to 8 locations inside Israel itself. Remember, many Hamas fighters have infiltrated into Israeli territory. It came 2 days after Hamas launched a barrage of rockets and sent a wave of fighters who gunned down civilians and took at least 100 hostages. Those hostages continue to remain in harm's way, with many of them not even any ransom demands have come in from the Hamas fighters. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asked the nation to prepare themselves for a long and difficult war. The US has said that several Americans have been killed in the surprise attack and ordered the deployment of US warships as well as fighter jet squadrons. Thailand has also claimed that 12 of its citizens have been killed and 11 have been kidnapped. Moreover, citizens from Brazil, Britain, France, Germany, Ireland, Mexico, Nepal and Ukraine have either been killed, kidnapped or are missing.
Behind me in the old city when I got an urgent call from my chief of staff telling me to get back to the hotel as quickly as I could, that Israel was under attack. There were thousands of rockets being launched. When I got back to the hotel, I joined others in the bomb shelter or the stairwells of the hotel. Frightened faces. There were children and elderly families, many Americans. There was a sense of fear and worry, and a knowledge to many of us that there were horrific things going on around the country at that time. Hundreds of people have been killed. Thousands of people have been wounded in a level of attacks at a scale that is staggering and really has not been seen in this country for over 50 years. We who believe in peace and freedom and human rights for Palestinians, for Israelis, for all humankind, must reject those who use terror as their weapon.
But we in Germany must also be particularly vigilant now. We must protect Jewish life in our country and stand strong and resolute against any form of anti-Semitism and hatred of Israel. We cannot tolerate it when people try to celebrate the brutal attacks on Israel on the open street. Those who cheer this terror not only degrade the victims, they also trample on human dignity and our German constitution. Such behavior appalls me. It disgusts me. In these difficult times, Germany stands firmly by Israel's side. The Israeli people can rely on that, and so can Jews in Germany.
Right, so on Middle East, look, many of you will have seen what's happened over the past 36 hours in Israel, and the scenes are truly, truly horrifying. And as I said yesterday, this is not a time for equivocation. Right? We should just be straightforward in what's happening here, and that's that Hamas and the people that support Hamas are fully responsible for appalling acts of terrorism. We should call it out for what it is. Citizens of Israel are being murdered, innocent people have been kidnapped, including children. Obviously that's shocking and it's horrifying, and they should be held accountable for that. And what I've said to the Israeli Prime Minister is that we will provide all the support that they need to make sure that Israel can defend itself against these kinds of attacks. Now, we already have a very long-standing relationship with Israel. We're one of their strongest allies. We've provided in the past the kinds of equipment that they've used to defend themselves over the past couple of days. And as I said to the Prime Minister, we will continue to provide, whether that's diplomatic, intelligence or security support as they need. I'm chairing a COBRA of my ministerial colleagues this afternoon when we'll continue to discuss the situation, but we're in close dialogue with our Israeli counterparts, and I know all of you will join me in wanting to stand steadfast with the people of Israel at this very difficult time for them.
Ongoing events in Israel over the past few days are horrific. I urge you and the Chinese people to stand with the Israeli people and condemn these cowardly and vicious attacks. 250 young people gathered at a dance, and the Hamas terrorists took machine guns and shot them all dead. I was very disappointed, to be honest, by the foreign ministry statement that showed no sympathy or support for Israel during these troubled times.
I am confident that Russia, the Arab League, all members of this organization can and must contribute to solving the problem. First of all, ending the bloodshed, ending the sufferings of civilians. We are ready to do this together with you and together with all other countries that are sincerely interested in establishing sustainable peace in the Middle East and ensuring the security of all countries in the region without exception, including the state of Palestine, the creation of which is required, as decided by the UN Security Council. We will exact a very heavy price for Hamas, who will pay for what they did, and this action will be remembered in Gaza for the next 50 years, and they will regret that they started this and we are responsible for it. Animals, yes, monstrous animals, who do not distinguish between blood, who slaughter and kidnap infants and old women, who carry out a cleaning spree of innocent young people at a party, young people whose only sin was being Israelis who wanted to be happy, who wanted to celebrate. This heinous act, which began in the middle of the Sabbath on Jewish holy day, crossing the border to carry out the attack, is an unforgivable sin. A sin that was led not only by a murderous terrorist organization, but by an evil axis whose base is in Iran and whose malignant cell repeatedly work to undermine us, our spirit, our sovereignty, and who we are as a people and as a country. My brothers and sisters, we are in a war from our home and we will win.
And I'm joined by Irina Sukumin, national security lawyer as well as geopolitical analyst on the broadcast. Thank you, Ms. Sukumin, for joining us on CNN News 18. Now, given the conflict that continues to rage in Israel, now over here we are always given the impression that Israeli intelligence is top-notch. It keeps it, a track of everything that's happening in Palestine. How was this attack possible at the end of the day, where over 5,000 rockets were fired from Palestinian territory into Israel, and so many fighters have now flooded Israeli territories? How was this possible? Is this a clear failure of the intelligence infrastructure of Israel?
I think having access to information is not the only thing that matters in formulating an effective response. You can have all the information flowing in, but if you're not able to put it together in a timely way or analyze it correctly, or if you get disinformation that contradicts it, or if you're not able to share the intelligence effectively with other agencies, or if you're simply overruled by the political decision makers who reject these reports, this is going to have an impact on developing an effective and timely response. And I think from various sources, it has become obvious that Israel was in a position to receive accurate information from its own sources, and thanks to its own capabilities, those capabilities did not fail. We also see that allied intelligence agencies provided and issued warnings. We have heard from an Egyptian intelligence official who mentioned that Egypt warned about something big coming soon, and there were also public red flags that pointed in the direction of an attack, such as shipments of explosives from Turkey to Gaza intercepted by the Israeli security services only weeks before this attack. So the issue is clearly not the availability of warning signs and intelligence. The issue may lie either in the way it was compiled and distributed, whether there was contradictory information that misdirected the attention or the dates or the times or the way this operation could be carried out, and a potential political response or interagency cooperation that has led to this outcome. There may also be additional factors, which may include cyber attacks that could have happened shortly before the main attack and disabled communication systems that provided tactical intelligence. There could have been internal sabotage by various parties with access to information who could have prevented the effective information flows up the chain inside the intelligence community, or they could have meddled and provided information and assistance that facilitated this attack against the knowledge of the government and the intelligence community. So many factors could have played a role here, but one thing for sure, I do not think that intelligence gathering process is so deeply flawed that it alone could account for this failure.
Right, but you're pointing out that there could have been internal sabotage. The entire infrastructure could have been targeted by another party. So, in your opinion, given the capabilities of the Palestinian side, do you think that they could have acted in such a way in an isolated manner? Could this sabotage, could this cyber attack, like you're pointing out, could have this happened with aid from other powerful nations? So, and by that question, I'm pointing to the role of Iran. Is Iran's fingerprint over this entire attack on Israel?
In fact, the Hamas spokesman speaking to BBC openly praised, thanked, and acknowledged Iran's role in not only in the general support for Hamas, but for the specific operation and potential operations in other countries, also pointing to Iran's and Hamas's growing global footprint. But Iran did not hide its intentions either, despite denials from the UN mission following a Wall Street Journal report that analyzed that the final approval for this operation was given in Beirut Monday. In fact, Wall Street Journal only 6 months ago, during the Ramadan uprising by Hamas, pointed to Iranian officials demanding that Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon would launch rocket attacks and other forceful attacks against Israel. And all of that pointed out to a coordinated effort that goes back a long time and not just for this specific operation. Still, there could be other factors involved because Hamas has been receiving weapons from other sources, not just Iran. It has been receiving funding from Qatar directly that was supposed to be going to education, to pay the salaries, but was likely misdirected. I already mentioned the explosives from Turkey, and there's a long decades worth of evidence of Chinese-made rockets in the possession of Hamas. How they got delivered is something worthy of investigation, because these reports of advanced Chinese rockets go back even 2 years ago. There were reports about it with no clear discussion of how they ended up in Hamas's hands.
Right. And decode this for us now that we are learning that so many Hamas fighters have infiltrated into Israel and they've set up base in Israeli territory, committing murder and even abducting Israeli citizens as well as citizens from other countries. Where do you see the challenges before the IDF to clear Israeli territory and to dismantle those Hamas strongholds as well as those camps which have been used to launch these attacks, number one? And number two, do you think that this stage and this level of a conflict could lead to such a military response that the entire dispute could be resolved in the coming few weeks itself?
With regards to the first, there are several challenges. First of all, fighting, as you mentioned, is ongoing, and that means that the Israeli population is vulnerable to additional attacks, even as IDF is trying to destroy Hamas launch and intelligence sites used in perpetrating this operation. The rocket fire has renewed, which means that despite The high number of sites already destroyed, more of them remain all over Gaza that are still being used effectively to attack Israel. So the challenge is Israel is already fighting on multiple fronts, and that's not even counting the increasing level of pressure from the north, the increased level of attacks from Hezbollah in the north. Clearing this means allocating the resources effectively, figuring out where all those terrorists are hiding. Some of them are operational in the sense that they are holding people hostage, they're attacking officers, they're engaging in combat. Others could be hidden and waiting for an opportune moment either to escape or to engage. Meanwhile, Israel must decide how to deal with Gaza effectively, because bringing in ground troops to advance inside a very densely populated territory presents its own sets of public image challenges, as well as logistical military challenges. And also Hezbollah threatened a full-scale war in the event that happens, but there may not be much of a choice. Previous efforts to use only airstrikes to destroy Hamas capabilities had a very limited time value. All of these sites were quickly rebuilt with the help of funding from abroad. With respect to whether Israel can wipe out Hamas completely and put an end to the conflict, that's, I think, a bit of a fantasy. Without Israel is not going to be engaging in war crimes, wiping out entire population of Gaza to get hidden Hamas operatives. They will go for clear identified targets linked to these attacks. They will try to destroy the sites identified as clearly linked to Hamas and other strategic infrastructure that could be used for that purpose, but they cannot simply flatten the place, much as propagandists on all sides would like to comment. More importantly than that, however, from a strategic point of view, this is not going to solve the problem, because this problem is not simply Hamas fighters who could be recruited from anywhere from the general population at any time. The issue is state funders and backers who perpetuate the conflict and who have capabilities globally and not just in the Gaza Strip. So without Israel taking its own fight against the backers and funders of Hamas on a global level, through financial pressure, through political lobbying to designate not only Hamas but everyone affiliated against him as unwelcome,
Right.
without going after Iranian officials who are responsible for sponsorship, without putting an end to any deals with Qatar, without getting explanations from Turkey about their funding of explosives and operations in Gaza. None of that is ever going to stop, because as long as there's money, sites for training available anywhere in the world, and population that is indoctrinated and used for recruitment by authoritarian forces, this conflict will continue.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Sukuman, for sharing your perspective on the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas.